Hey guys, and welcome back to my Let's Play slash Farming Simulator 17 tutorial. This is day 2 of, well, this is day 1 in the game, but this is the second video. You might notice I got a haircut from the last one. It was Halloween last weekend, so I dressed up a little bit, had a little bit of fun. But let's get started again. First things first, let's make sure all our guys are doing their jobs, and it looks like they are. Next thing is I wanted to talk about something that was pointed out to me on the Steam forums from user, and I'm probably going to totally butcher his name, but his username is Tigre de Ponche, or Posh, something like that. He was talking to me about harvest yields, and one of the things that he was saying is that although these numbers right here seem significantly lower than, for instance, the canola or the soybeans, that you actually get about double the yield from barley and wheat, or wheat and barley. So I wanted to test that out in game to kind of show exactly how much you get from each individual one, or from these two and these two. So what we're going to do when our crops are when our canola is done being harvested, I'm going to put it all into the silo and measure out how many liters I get. And then for our next harvest, I was thinking we could do a wheat or barley, and when that's done, putting it in the silo and measuring how much we get out of that, and comparing the two to really see what the difference in yield is for them. And then finally we could do it for sunflower and corn. It all depends, but as I understand, he was saying you get about double the yield for these. So if that's the case, that's kind of a game changer if you didn't know that, which I didn't really. I suspected it was a different yield, but I didn't know that there was an actual number that we had. So with if this is double the yield, then it looks like this 426 right here, comparative to the canola or soy being as double, it would be almost as if the canola was charging or was buying for 852, as opposed to, you know, the highest one we've got here at 796 and the highest one here at 721. So that'll be really interesting. That'll kind of change kind of the landscape, you could say, no pun intended, on our farms. So first things first, I'm going to take our truck over here and drive them back to the farm, and I will see you guys in a bit. Alright, so I'm pulling back into the shop right now, or back into my farm. I'm going to park this guy right here and just leave him alone for a bit. And let's check up on my other guys. We're still going here and here, so that's good. I've got let's see, just a little bit to go on my farm before we're ready for the harvest. I've got Tractor A, that's my New Holland. He's cultivating this field right here. He's already cultivated 14 and 12, and I've got my my case. He is seeding on field 12, and when he's done, we'll move him to 14 and then 15. But as soon as my New Holland is done on plot 15, he won't have anything to do. So we're going to go ahead and go to the shop with him, and we're going to buy a front loader, and then we're going to buy the pallet fork, and then finally we're going to buy this fertilizer, so that we can go ahead and fertilize the fields once they're fully seeded. Notice that as this guy seeds feed 12, he also does the initial fertilization, so that's good. That just means we need to do 2 more passes once they are through the next couple growth stages. So that'll also fertilize 14 and 15 on the initial one. But while he's seeding, he's going to start running out of seeds rather quickly. And one of the things that I've noticed, people asking all the time is why can't I refill my seeder? And one of the things that I've noticed is it's generally because these guys are way too close to each other. And when you back your seeder up into here to hit the refill button, it'll refill your fertilizer. And once you just keep clicking the button and it won't refill your seeds, and that's because it's set for fertilizer at the moment. So with the pallet fork, we're going to be able to buy some seeds, because I don't think this is going to be quite enough for my three fields, but it'll also let us move these seeds. And this is one of the things I just like to do to tidy up, is to move the seeds over here, and that way I don't have any concern about whether or not I'm going to be able to refill them. It makes everything kind of nice and tidy as well, and that's really gonna be a headache that I avoid just by separating those. So I'm gonna do that on this tractor right here. He's also my youngest tractor, you could say. The New Holland has, let's see, he's only got 52 days on him, and he's charging $557 in maintenance fees a day. So I can get a lot more use out of him than I can on my case, which is 20 days older. So I'm gonna put the front loader on him, and the pallet fork as well, and everything. And while I'm at the store, I'm gonna go ahead and buy some seeds, and I'm gonna buy the fertilizer as well. Then we'll head back, set all that up, and get to finishing seeding on all three of these plots. But until then, since he still has a little ways to go to cultivate this field, and this guy still has a ways to go to cultivate, or to seed this field, I'm going to take over for him, and we'll see you when I'm done with that. All right, so I'm done seeding plot number 12, and I'm moving right along to plot number 14. So I'm going to get my seeder in place and get him ready to go. But I want you to notice on the bottom right, I've only got about 30% seeds left. So I want to go ahead and set him up so that he can refill and not kind of waste a beat. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this guy off and head into town. And when I get into town, I'm going to make a couple purchases, and I'm also going to modify my tractor, and I'll show you how and why as soon as I get here. The first thing is we're going to need to buy a front loader. So the purpose of the front loader is because I need this pallet fork, and we can only use the pallet fork if I put a front loader on the front of my tractor. So let's buy him, and once you buy the front loader, that kind of opens up the options of the bucket, the pallet fork, the bale spike, etc. Except this is kind of the piece that you need first. So once we have him, we can get the pallet fork, and that's what we really want to use. But notice on my tractors, it shows on some of them tractors are required to pull trailers and tools, etc. But so notice on this one right here, the New Holland, this says this tractor can also attach a front loader. So by default, when you buy these, they don't come ready for the front loader. So what we need to do is we need to first bring them into the shop, and to do that, we're going to drop them off right over here. And we need to customize the tractor to be able to equip that stuff, or else we won't be able to do anything with that equipment. So let's bring him in here and move over to this screen right here, and let's go to customize, and notice it says no on here, so we're going to click to the right here. It costs $800 and $1,000 base, so it's going to be $1,800 so I can equip the front loader. That's quite expensive, but it's just a one-time fee for this tractor. Now that he's got that, he can go ahead and equip the front loader that we just bought. So anybody that's had troubles with tractors that say they can't equip front loaders, but you haven't been able to do anything with it, go ahead and make sure that you've got the front loader attachment onto the front of your tractor, or else you won't be able to put this guy on. So we need to equip him first, and to do that we have to go right in there, thread the needle, move up a little bit, and he's ready to attach. Once he's attached, we can move forward and grab this guy, which is the pallet fork. He'll attach right onto the front of this, and now we can kind of move this guy around, do one of these. He's going to be really handy when it comes to refilling our seeds, buying fertilizer and seeds, etc. Before we do that, while we're here, we want to make two more purchases, and those are going to be the we want to get some fertilizer spreader, and that's going to be this guy right here, the very first one. This is the Kverneland, I guess. Sounds good to me. He is by far the cheapest option that we have. And then while we're in the shop, we're going to go ahead and buy another pallet of seeds, because we're going to need that to be able to do all of our fields. I don't think the default 2 packs gives you enough. So we want to make sure that we have enough, and since we're already here, we don't want to have to drive back and forth over and over and over, so we're just going to go ahead and buy that right now. Now there's the option of buying trucks and kind of other options to carry these around in mass, but we really can't afford those right now, so we're just going to have to bite the bullet and depend on buying these and moving them one at a time. So I'm going to go ahead and try and line him up to get this in there. Let's see if that worked. The thing to be careful about with this is that physics is a thing in this game. So it is, and I've done it before, it is very easy to be driving around and make a sharp turn or brake suddenly and your pallet just goes flying. So be careful and wary of that when you're driving around. Slow down around turns and whatnot. And oh man, I'm just the worst at driving and talking. But just be careful so you don't end up having to run into the fields to try to grab a pallet of seeds that you kind of accidentally threw, which I've done before. And oh man, I'm so bad at connecting these things. I actually think I've got it backwards. Just be wary of that when you're making turns and kind of going crazy. I know it's easy in video games to just trying to kind of speed the whole process up and go as fast as possible, but that's not best case scenario when you're dealing with these pallets. So drive slowly. Another thing, by the way, which is really cool that Giant Software did, if you look at the guys, they're all running around like zombies because it's Halloween right now. I just thought that was the coolest little thing that they did. I want to move ahead before he tries to bite me. Although if I could convince these guys to work for me, I figured it'd be a lot cheaper than actual workers. But so I'm going to head back and I'm going to organize my fields, or sorry, I'm going to organize my pallets so that I can make so I can kind of get rid of the headache of trying to refill my sower with the seed pallets and the fertilizer pallets being right next to each other. I've noticed on the forums people talk a lot about how do I refill seed? I can only refill fertilizer, and that's really because they place them too close together. So with everything placed close together like that, once your tractor registers that you are close enough for the fertilizer, it won't switch over to seeds until you move far enough from the fertilizer to sorry, let me turn on my beacon lights. Can't believe it. It won't register the seeds until you are far enough from the fertilizer to where it doesn't register the fertilizer. And it's kind of a pain, but by organizing your inventory, you can make it a lot easier on yourself, and that's one of the things I intend on doing when I get back to the farm. As well as dropping the fertilizer spreader off and getting back to cultivating. Once I'm back and I've organized everything, I'm going to drop the front loader off because right now, since it's brand new, it's not charging me anything, but I don't want to just keep it on the tractor gaining hours. I'm not sure whether or not it gains hours just by being on the tractor while it's in motion, or if it gains hours by being actually in use. But I also don't want to test it, and I don't need the front loader while I'm cultivating. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this this right here. I'm going to move this to this field up there, so that I'm just going to drop it off so that when he's all out of seeds, I can just have this here sitting here for him. I don't need to continuously move the seeds back and forth all over my farm. I can just drop these off right here, and then I can pick them up when he's done, or I can move them or whatever I want to do. Whoops. Now that I've got those there, I'm going to pick up the other one, and you can't really tell now because I've just dropped it off. But while I had it on my tractor, you could see that it said it had 100% at 1,000, and so when we pick this other one up, which is going to be right over here, you'll notice that I've already used some of it, so it's going to have a different count on here, and that way you know which one's the new one and which one is not. But let's see what happens when I pick this guy up. So let's go ahead and bring this down, and let's see if I can get him on the first try. Got him. I'm notoriously bad at this, so yep, look at the bottom right of the screen and you can see the pallet in blue, and he's at 30%, which is 300. So that kind of makes it easy to keep track. Let's bring it over to our tractor and or our seeder, and go ahead and let him refill. And then we can get this guy started, and he's got this other pallet here just in case, which this might not even be enough for him to completely fill him up. But let's see. And notice that the flaps open when I get close enough with the seeds. So let's find this tractor, hit the refill button, and see what happens. Perfect, he's refilling, and it makes it to just 42%. So I might as well go ahead and refill him with these seeds right here, since I'm already here. Look at me just knocking this thing around. Oh man, I'm so bad at this. That's alright though. Luckily, this is not a game that really punishes you for being terrible at driving tractors. It more punishes you for being terrible at managing money. So let's grab this guy. I think that might be good enough. Yeah, that's good enough. And let's not throw him. Switch over to my next tractor, fill up all the way. And he's good to go. Let's go ahead and turn him on and hire a worker. Move over to my New Holland. Drop this guy off. Alright, sweet. So I'm going to go drop all this stuff off at the... oh, don't want to get in his way because he'll just quit on me. I'm going to drop all this stuff off at the at my little storage area over here. But I'm also going to organize it a little bit to show you guys how to make it easier to not get into this unable to refill your sower or seeder business. So to organize it, what I do is I just grab this last pallet of seeds and I move them over to the other side of that partition right there, and that makes everything easier. You probably heard my dog right there. She's just kind of sleeping behind me, which is really funny because I've tested her with the mic and she snores pretty loudly. Kind of gets in the way. So if you do hear snoring noises, it's just my dog. All right, let's organize this by putting it here. And once this is all done, I'm going to go back to cultivating my field, if I can actually do this. No, yes, no, one day. There we go. So now I've got seeds on one side and I've got the fertilizer on the other side. I can now just back my seeder into that and not have any worries about whether or not I'm going to be refilling seeds or if I'm going to be refilling fertilizer, which really is a big pain in the butt. But while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and drop off my pallet fork and front loader, because I don't need those guys for a while. So let's select that, drop him off, and then I'm going to back the fertilizer spreader into here with the fertilizer, and I'm going to drop him off. So let's lower him first, drop him off, and we'll get back to cultivating. Now I've got I should have my seeder is working, doing his job, and my cultivator is about to be cultivating. I'm just going to go pick up the cultivator, attach it, and finish this job myself. When I'm done with that, I'll go to seeding the rest of my property or my farm, and we will we'll move on from there, and then we'll be ready for the harvest. Do it aside from just fertilizing the fields, and I'll show you how you know when to do it and how you can tell how far you've gotten in just a minute. So cultivating's done. I'm just going around here double checking to make sure that every last little piece of it is taken care of. Sometimes workers like to miss little spots here and there. It's kind of annoying, but it's real easy to fix and only takes a couple seconds. And with that done, I'm happy here. I'm going to drop off this cultivator, park this tractor for a minute, and we'll take over for our seeder. And that pretty much wraps up all the different steps to the beginnings of your harvest. The only other thing you have left to do is going to be the fertilizing. Now, if you're playing on normal, or if you turn it off, the periodic plowing required, if you have that turned off, it doesn't require, or sorry, if you turn off the fertilizer states, it doesn't require all three states of fertilizing, and your sower will, or your seeder will automatically do your fertilization for you. So once that's done, you can basically wait till the end of the harvest. But on hard mode, with the fertilizer states being 3, we're going to have to do it 3 separate times, and you'll be able to tell where you're at, and it'll be a little easier once we kind of get into it. But you'll be able to tell where you're at based off of the color of the different plots, with this one being fertilized once while we seed, and then when the plants grow a little bit, we'll be able to do it again. When they grow again, we'll be able to do it one last time, and then we can just wait for the harvest, even though I think technically there is going to be 4 separate growth stages. So we've got it done here, we're going to do it again here, and then the last growth stage we can just wait it out. So in the meantime, I've got my plow, or my cultivator is parked over there. We're not going to need him for quite a while, and I'm going to go ahead and pull my tractor in here and turn him off, because we're not going to need him for a little while either. And then we're going to just basically we're just going to fill this guy's job. Since I've got nothing to do, I'm going to do this myself, and I'll do this field, and I'll do my last field, which is 15, and that'll take me a couple hours to do, depending on how distracted I get in the meantime. But once all of that is done, we can look at fertilizing, and really seeing how easy that is. It's a shame to miss out on 30% of your crop yield for not fertilizing, when every single fertilizer in the game is super easy to do, goes by really fast, has a very large arc of or area that it covers. So it's good to get in the practice of doing that, and I think the results are definitely worth taking the time to do it. So we'll see you when we're done with this field, or when we're done with both fields. So I've got all of my fields sown and ready to go. I've got, as you can tell, canola on all 3 fields. They are all in the very first stage of growing, and they are all in the first stage of fertilization. So what we're doing right now is, as you can tell, it's already kind of approaching nighttime. We're just waiting around for the crops to grow and enter the next stage of their growth cycle. So we're going to fast forward it in just a little bit, but I wanted to recap. I've got my case right here. He is parked and nothing going on with him. I've left the sower on him because we're going to use him again to sow the fields as soon as we're done harvesting. But I don't want to use this tractor too much because he just costs so much money, and the more I use him, the more hours I put on him, and the more he charges me per day. So we're going to use the other tractor to kind of do everything else. I've got this guy already set up and ready to go on the field. So as soon as the crops start budding, I can go ahead and start fertilizing. And I'm going to do this all myself because this is a one-man job, and I don't need to spend any more money on wages, because there would be nothing for me to do in the meantime, and that's just wasted money. As you can tell, I started the game with $15,000, and I've ended this cycle. Well, not quite yet, but I'm approaching the end of this harvest with $18,657, with my biggest expense really being, aside from buying new equipment, my biggest running cost is going to be the wages and then at the end of the day, it's going to be the vehicle running costs. So since I've bought all this equipment, that's going to be kind of that's kind of going to be a loss for me. But I sold the tractor, so I really used that to be able to buy this other equipment. The harvest income that I got initially was really small, and the wage payment is really what's going to eat up most of the things that I can control. What I can't control is how long it takes for the plants to grow, and so the days that I have to pay for vehicle running costs, they're kind of a fixed charge, but at the same time, I've got to account for them whenever I'm budgeting for what I can and can't do. So I know that it's going to be about 2 days and about just over $4,000 a piece. So we're looking at between $8,000 to $9,000 per harvest just in vehicle running costs. We're looking at $3,818 in wages per harvest. So we're already at just about, I want to say about let's see, eight to 9,000 plus 3.5 or 38. That's going to be about $12,000 to almost $13,000. So the profit on this harvest might be really small, and that's just kind of the cost of doing business at the start until we can buy a couple more pieces of equipment that speed the process up, and hopefully we don't have to pay too much money each harvest for the seed and the fertilizer. Now, that brings this menu over here into a new light when you look at where you're buying or where you're selling everything. So we really want to make smart decisions. We don't want to wait so long that we go into the red just for a couple dollars here and there. We want to try to stay in the black as much as possible in case there's an expense that we didn't account for. Running out of fertilizer, running out of seed, etc. We want to try to do this without going and taking in another loan. And I know that's the fast way to do things, but we're trying to do this on hard with some sort of sensibility in terms of how we would run this if it was an actual business, without having the option to just run to the bank every time. So we're gonna fast forward just a little bit and see if the crops don't begin to grow. And as soon as they do, we'll pause it again and take a look at what it looks like, so that we know what to look for in terms of fertilizing states, etc. So let's go ahead and look at this one more time before and there they go. They already started sprouting. And growth cycle. So it looks like they're in the next growth cycle. You can tell just looking at the like this field right here. No, it looks like all of them. We don't have a single one in the first growth cycle. But as you can see, this is the second little shade of green. That's what my fields look like now, and it's very obvious just looking at the field that they're in their next growth cycle. So what we want to try to do here, let's see if we can't toggle the lights, get all our lights going. And let's look at what happens when we fertilize. So right here we're on our fertilizing screen and we've got a very light blue. We're going to just do this a little bit just to see what it looks like. And let's see, toggle the fertilizer. Let's move ahead a little bit. And as you can tell, this is pretty wide. Really easy to get the whole field or a large portion of a field in one little pass. And I'm going 12 miles an hour, so it's not like it's really slowed me down any. We're going to do this one line, and then we're going to look at what the map looks like. So I've got that one line done, and as you can tell, it's darkened a little bit. So this line right here is in the second stage of fertilization. And if we go back to the growth cycle, we can see that once it's about the same color as my numbers, and once it hits the next growth cycle, it's going to be this darker one. It's a real solid, firm green right here, which looks closer to this one right here. you'll be able to see that. So this is how you know when to fertilize and when you're ready to do the next step. Because if we would have fertilized without the plants budding, the color would not have changed. So I'm going to go ahead, I set my time back to 1 because I don't want to waste any time, but I'm going to go ahead and start fertilizing the rest of the fields, changing all of them from this light blue to this darker blue right here. Okay, so we're back and we're done doing the first fertilizing with my new fertilizer spreader. Let's go back into this screen here and look, we've got dark blue on everything except for these spots, which sadly were missed by my sower. So there's not really anything I can do about that. It's kind of a bummer, but we'll live. I've got it set to the fastest time scale, which is 120, and hopefully this will go by relatively quickly. What I want to see is how much is going to get taken out in terms of equipment costs, and then we'll be able to judge basically what our harvest is gonna cost us. So here in about game time 30 minutes, that should come right out. When that's done, it'll be another couple hours until the next stage for the crops is ready. And once that's done, we'll be able to do our last run with the fertilizer, which, to be honest with you, I think that that's going to not quite be enough fertilizer total to be able to run all of this. So that being said, if you look in the upper right, you can see the loan interest and the vehicle running cost actually came out less than I thought. And that's because I had calculated that based on having that other tractor, and I didn't have it. So thankfully, it didn't cost us as much as I thought. Notice that if we would not have sold the original tractor, we would be in the red right now. So that's good that we sold that, because it would have basically the money we have right now is about equal to the money we would have spent. But this $17,000 keeps us in the black. Property maintenance, $1. And we've got a $421 fee for interest. And lastly, we've got our vehicle running costs at $3,696. Now that's going to be per day, and now that all of my equipment is at least a day old, we can go and see one day this jumped up to $20, $5, and $20. So the next cycle is going to be it's going to be a little more expensive because everything gained in price, but we've also got this $45 extra on these guys, and I don't know how fast they'll start going up, but it's definitely a thing today. The next harvest is probably going to be tomorrow in terms of day 3, really. So we've got to look at least another $3,696 coming out, and we've got to look at probably buying fertilizer, which if we look on our menu here is going to cost $1,600. So it's definitely more expensive than our seeds, and unfortunately the fertilizer is good enough that we do want to get it. And actually, to be honest with you, we can go through the harvest at the end and see how much the fertilizer costs per harvest, and see if the 60% boost that we get from the fertilizer is worth it. Or we can see how much it's worth to maybe fertilize only twice instead of 3 times, based on the cost of the seed and the gains we get from the 30% increase per fertilizing cycle. So and that's a concept called opportunity cost. For the 30% gain, is it worth spending $1,600? And we'll have to see. So I'm going to just kind of let this set until the next cycle is ready to go, and I'll know that just based off of the colors. And well, I mean, I'll know it by looking at the screen, but we'll also see a change in the colors right here to this darker green right here, as we've seen with the fertilizer going darker once I was done with that. So we'll start this right back up as soon as the plants have grown a little bit more. All right, as you can tell, we've grown a little bit more, and looking at our screen over here, we are now this solid green color that is darker than our numbers now, or yeah, than our numbers now, as opposed to before where it was about the same color. So with it growing one more time, I have another chance to fertilize, and this will be the last fertilization cycle. We can go ahead and start our vehicle up. Turn our fertilizer on and run just a little bit, and let's go ahead and look at what we've got now. If we look here, we can see a darker blue going on right there, so this is definitely working towards our third fertilization cycle. And I think that should pretty much solve any questions that anybody has on when do I fertilize. Can I do all three at once? You can't. The color would not change if I would have done it twice during the same growth cycle. But every time you get a growth cycle, do another fertilization run until you've done 3 total. So that's one time with the seeder, which does it automatically while it's seeding. Then wait for them to grow and do it again. Wait for them to grow one more time and do it one last time. And that will be all 3 stages of fertilization. So that is a grand total of 90% increase in our yield from our crops. The other 10% comes from plowing. And as you can see, we are in the red, which means we need plowing. But we don't start the game with a plow, and we don't have the money to buy one right now. We technically could buy one, but we would go right into the red as soon as the second day hit. So instead of doing that, we're going to try to make a little bit of money. And once we have enough money to buy the plow with cash and cover the costs of the next harvest, then we know that's the time to buy. And the reason we do that instead of buying the fertilizer spreader is because the fertilizer spreader gives us a chance to gain 60% crop yield, as opposed to the plow, which only gains us 10%. And remember, I say 60% because we gained the original 30 just from seeding, which is kind of nice. So with getting just a whole bunch more, 90% from fertilizing, that's definitely more cost effective than buying a plow and only getting 10%. So I'm going to go ahead and fertilize the rest of my fields, and then we're going to wait until the harvest after that's done, and we will. I'm thinking that that's going to be probably on day 3. Maybe it might be in day 2 in the middle of the night, but I think by the time everything is said and done, it's going to be 2 days growth cycle on slow. So that'll be one more time where we have to pay equipment fees and my $1 property fee. And we'll also have to pay interest. So with all that being said, we can find out how much it costs just to plant and harvest, and then how much we gain for the harvest, and see where we might have to make adjustments to how we're doing things. I know that on normal or easy, the numbers will be a little different, but I wanted to try it on hard because I feel like the game is designed to be able to do this kind of thing, and it might be a little slower, but that's why it's I guess that's why it's called hard, even though technically all the steps are the same. So we'll see you guys once it's time to harvest. I'm going to go ahead and start fertilizing again. Okay, so all my fields are fully fertilized. I've got 2 more growth cycles to go, or one growth cycle, and then ready to harvest. And I've got everything in place, just waiting for that to happen. Once the next growth cycle happens, if I would have missed a fertilization phase, I could do it then. But otherwise, it's just a waiting game until it's ready to harvest. So you can see we're in our last growth cycle, and money just got taken out of the bank for the running costs and the loan. So that brings us to a grand total of, let's see, 3,696 on Monday, 3,714 on Tuesday. We still have the same for wage payments because I haven't used any workers yet. But we're now down to 8,804 in terms of cash in the bank. So that should be the last charge we get. So let's see what happens after we're done harvesting. That should be the last day, the last charge for anything. I did in fact have to go in and buy fertilizer. So aside from that, we shouldn't have any other costs. So we'll see what happens when we harvest. We put everything in the silos, measure out how much we have, and then start selling it all.